Good afternoon, North and Central Georgia. My name is Kyle Thiem, meteorologist at the National Weather Service office in Peachtree City, Georgia, and this is your weekly weather briefing for Thursday, January 26, 2023. All right, so looking at our highlights this week, there's not a whole lot to talk about. High pressure is going to reign through the end of the week. It's going to be clear, chilly, and breezy today and tomorrow, with a slight uptick in temperatures and moisture as we head into Saturday to end the week. And then as we get into next week, we're looking at an active and wet pattern, likely with rain chances Sunday through late Thursday, with probably about 1.5 to 3 inches of precip as we move through several rounds of rain as we get into next week. But currently looking out there, we have some good cloud cover through the area, but some differing conditions depending on what part of the state you're in. Up there in North Georgia, we have some low-level clouds as that cool air from the cold front from yesterday continues to flow into the area. As some of that cool air actually rises up and over the mountains, we're actually getting some reports of even some snow flurries in places like Blue Ridge up there earlier this morning. As temperatures start to rise, those should start to peter off a little bit though. But interesting enough, satellite imagery is showing us across central Georgia, we have some upper level cirrus. But if you take a look at some of these marks, these gashes through that cirrus, those are actually hole punch clouds that we're observing on satellite. Those occur whenever planes at higher altitudes fly through those upper level clouds, and those ice crystals coalesce and become too heavy for the clouds to support them, and they fall out of the clouds. It's actually a beautiful atmospheric phenomena. If you're in that area, hopefully you do observe some of that out there today. Otherwise, we have some temperatures in the 40s around noon at the time we're recording this, with wind gusts up to about 25 miles per hour. So it's quite chilly conditions out there. Pretty typical though here for January. All right, looking at some surface maps for today, we can see that cold front that's now pushed off over the Atlantic. That's what we had coming through yesterday with some showers and brief thunderstorms, especially down there in central Georgia. Thankfully, none of it's severe as far as we are aware. But we have this high pressure that's spanning a really wide area, starting out here in around the Four Corners region, Mountain West, and even into western Texas. That's going to make its way very slowly across down to the Gulf states by tomorrow and move into our area on Saturday. As we get there on Saturday as well, we're going to start seeing some of those winds start to come up out of the south and start to push a little bit higher moisture and temperatures in through the Gulf states. So as we get into Saturday afternoon, we should start seeing temperatures start to come up a little bit, as well as winds starting to decrease there on Saturday as that high pressure really starts to move over our area. So just focusing on the rest of the week here, we can see our temperatures for Thursday and Thursday night. Here we are expecting to stay mostly in the 40s here for Thursday for North Georgia, getting into some low 50s for Central Georgia. Then by the time we get into tonight, it's going to be pretty cold. Most areas should see temperatures below freezing, even some low 20s up there in the far North Georgia mountains. Friday actually looks remarkably similar. We're still going to have a little bit of breezy conditions out there as well, but temperatures are going to uptick ever so slightly, which is upper 40s to low 50s for the forecast area. And again, tomorrow night, most areas trying to get down below freezing, at least they're in the low 30s to upper 20s. And like we mentioned, by the time we get into Saturday, we're going to have a reverse to our flow. We're going to have some warm, moist air coming up from the Gulf. And so temperatures are going to increase a little bit to get above normal for the first time in a few days. They're in the mid to upper 50s for most of the forecast area. And by the time we get into the evening and overnight period, most low temperatures are going to be in the mid to upper 30s. Then we start to see a little bit of a pattern shift as we get into next week. The active pattern is going to return. We are expecting a couple fronts to move through, but more importantly, the upper level flow pattern is going to be coming out of the south, which means we're going to have a lot of moisture coming up out of the Gulf. And this is a great imagery here on Sunday looking at the rain chances. You can see basically all along the northern Gulf of Mexico coastline, stretching all the way up into the northeast. You can see that plume of moisture that is continually pushing up to the northeast. So as we start to get into that pattern, we're going to have some rain chances sneak up. Thankfully, because we're going to be in a colder air regime, it's actually going to keep a lot of the instability out of our area. So right now we're just forecasting and thinking that we're going to be seeing some showers and some rain across our forecast area there on Sunday. Monday, we might have a brief reprieve depending on the timing of the fronts. Some of this forecast is still coming together, but we are expecting potentially a couple weak cold fronts to push through the area that could give us a break from the rain on Monday. However, we are still looking at somewhere between 10 to 40% chances depending on what area of the forecast area you happen to be in. But then as we get into Tuesday, and then again on Wednesday, and even into Thursday here, we see those rain chances really start to rebound as those southerly flow continues to push that moisture up into our area. We do have a couple fronts that are going to be possible again through the middle of next week, especially here on Wednesday and into Thursday, where we do have a cold front that is anticipated to push through with some minor instability in the models, which indicate we could get at least a slight chance for some weaker isolated thunderstorms across the area. As of right now, we're not expecting any severe weather as instability values remain pretty limited, even for this time of year. However, we will stay on the lookout and stay vigilant through mid next week, just in case anything does happen to change. Looking at our temperatures over the next 7 days, this is specifically for Atlanta, but you can think about 5 degrees cooler if you're in far northern Georgia, about 5 degrees warmer if you're there in central Georgia. But we can kind of see how we're starting out today and tomorrow slightly below normal. These dashed lines are the normal highs and lows for the area. See, we're starting out a little bit below normal with pretty chilly temperatures overnight. As Saturday comes around, we see that rebound in temperatures as the high for Atlanta gets up to around 57 degrees. And then with the start of that first cold front there on Sunday, we start to dip down. As our cloud cover increases, it actually limits our temperature range pretty significantly there, right in the middle of our normal temperatures for these times of year. And then as we get into the middle part of next week, we see those temperatures start to really increase. We see highs coming back in the 60s. Those lows really start to tick upwards continually. That's a sign that a lot of moisture is going to be pumping into our region. It's going to help limit the amount of cooling temperatures that we get in the overnight period. So that's why you're seeing those lows really go from 34 on Saturday morning, upticking continuously to Wednesday with that low there of 58. All right, so looking at our chances of precip through next week, this is first starting out on Sunday. You see it's really high. We have a lot of confidence that we're going to be getting some widespread rain throughout the forecast area. And then we have our brief reprieve there on Monday, as we only have chances in between about 10 to about 30% through our forecast area. Then as we get into Tuesday and Wednesday, we see those chances start to increase again. Now, right now we're really looking at chances, around about 40 to 60, 70% for those couple of days. That's likely to increase. Right now, there's a little bit of a spread in the models in terms of timing and coverage. But as those start to coalesce as our forecast period goes forward, those are likely to increase as we get closer to those time periods. All in all, though, as we look at the rainfall for next week, we have forecast values around 1.5 to 3 inches broadly across the forecast area. We're expecting, because we don't have a whole lot of chances for storms, that might remain pretty steady as we go through the week. We may not see large pockets of increased rainfall for localized areas, but with that in mind, there's always a chance that we have some higher values. So we could see localized values up to over 4 inches possible for some portions of the area, but broadly about 1.5 to 3 inches steadily spread out through next week. So in summary, high pressure reigns through the end of this week. It's going to be clear, chilly, and breezy, at least on Thursday and Friday, with a slight uptick in temperatures there on Saturday before we head into an active and wet pattern in through next week. The first of that cold fronts are going to come on Sunday with widespread rain showers. Not expecting storms at this time, but that's going to cool us off a little bit on Sunday, and then we're going to gradually get warmer as we head through the middle of next week. We may get a brief chance for getting a break from the rain on Monday. So if there's anything you're doing next week that you need a break in the rain for, Monday is going to be your best bet, because as we head into Tuesday, Wednesday, and next Thursday, we're looking at that warm and wet pattern with a small chance for weak isolated thunderstorms there on probably Wednesday and Thursday would be the best timing for those. There is some model spread right now and uncertainty as we head into the middle of next week, but looking at some of the models, those seem like the best days for getting at least a tiny bit of instability into the area and getting some storms. But as of right now, We're not indicating any severe storms for that time period, so mostly just weak isolated storms will be possible. And again, thankfully with this week we removed nearly all the drought from our forecast area. There's only a tiny sliver of abnormally dry for our farthest southeast portion. So it's good. Our rainfall recently has helped drive that away, and the continued rainfall through next week will help keep that away, with about 1.5 to 3 inches of widespread rain showers possible, with some locally higher amounts up to over 4 inches through next Thursday. With that, again, I am Kyle Thiem, a meteorologist here at your National Weather Service office in Peachtree City, Georgia, covering North and Central Georgia. We appreciate you listening into our briefing. If you need to reach out to us, we have a whole host of different means of reaching us, which you can see here through either social media or direct contact. With that, hope you have a great weekend.